5-Minute Pearls for Clinical Practice. This week's pearl is called Yes. Hello, this is Dr. Brian Morris, and this is 5-Minute Pearls for Clinical Practice, where you will learn the tools to provide exceptional care for your patients. This is the weekly podcast where you will be introduced to time-tested, evidence-based patient care strategies that aren't always taught in schools or training programs, but are nonetheless crucial for success in clinical practice. Yes, that's a word we all love to hear. As children, we wanted to hear the word yes from our parents whenever we would ask for a gift, especially during the holidays. But how does this apply to clinical practice? Well, our staff usually feels the same way as we used to feel during the holidays as children. They want to hear yes from us. If you have hired good people in your practice and given them the necessary training, then most staff members do their best to make the office work as smoothly as possible. And what we should be thinking is, what can we do to help them to do their jobs more optimally? How can we put our staff in the best position to excel at their job? One way that I have learned over the years is to say yes as often as humanly possible. If my staff asks me to squeeze in an extra patient at the end of the day, I try to say yes if at all possible. If my staff asks me if I could help them to fix a problem with their computer or some other problem that I might be able to help with, I try to say yes as often as possible, or figure out a way to get them the necessary help if I can't figure out how to fix the problem. We all get busy. Sometimes we get really busy. But remember that if you get stressed, then your staff will probably feel that stress as well. And the more stress that you feel, the less effective they can be at their jobs. So what can we do to help our staff? Well, we can answer yes whenever possible. We can be a problem solver. We can help as much as possible. Don't adopt the paradigm of others helping to take care of you. Take care of others. If someone on your team asks you for help, then do your best to help them. I learned this paradigm about 16 years ago when I was in practice in Boston. Our practice's medical director was Dr. Phil Triffletti, and Phil convinced our practice to adopt a practice model called open access, which means that the doctors would need to be open to squeezing in patients during the day on same-day notice. This means that if a patient called at 9 a.m. with a fever, then we would be open to seeing that patient the same day, sometimes even within the same hour. Now, this took some alterations in our schedules to ensure that we had good availability to see patients on same-day notice, but we found that it mostly involved a change in our attitude. We needed to take a yes attitude to seeing patients. At first, I didn't think this would work, frankly. I told Phil that there was no way that we could add on these extra patients every day, but he contended that same-day availability was crucial for our patients and that we could make this work. And he was right. After a few weeks of doing this, we learned how to structure our schedules to have same-day open access availability for our patients. And more importantly, we learned to be open to saying, yes, I can see that patient. I can make it work. I learned that once I made that shift in my thinking to the yes mentality, I can do this, all sorts of ideas started popping into my head for how I can make this work. Once we accept the internal yes, it is miraculous how our minds can come up with new ways to make things work. I learned about this internal yes from Dr. Phil Triffletti, and now I encourage medical students to do the same. If at all possible, try to say yes to situations that are presented to you at the office. If your staff asks you to squeeze in a patient, try to figure out a way to say yes. If something is best for your office and for your patients, do what you can to say yes and find ways to make this a reality. Let's keep the dialogue going. Let me know what you think of this week's Pearl for Clinical Practice. You can email me at drmorris at 5minutemd.com. That's DRMORRIS at 5minutemd.com. You can post your comments and your experiences on the 5 Minute MD Facebook page. You can follow us on Twitter at Brian Morris MD. And you can visit us anytime on our website, 5minutemd.com. Let your friends and your colleagues know about the podcast and make sure that you are subscribed on iTunes. When you are subscribed on iTunes, you will receive new podcast pearls as soon as they are posted. And if you have a few minutes and you enjoy what we're doing here on this podcast, please head over to iTunes and leave us a review. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you at the next 5.